Hello everybody. This is a short presentation to just give everyone an overview of what our interim structured arrangements are going to be from the 1st of July, and also give a bit of a prelude or an early view of some of our proposals for a more permanent structure to go live in April 22. So why we're doing some of this? Well, as a DIS leadership team, as you know from previous presentations, and I'll skim on some of the slides, so as a reminder to you, we're really keen to raise the maturity and modernise the DIS service as a whole, really looking at how we improve the way we operate and our operating model, raise our maturity in terms of best practice in that regard. What we need to do as well, because we're moving to new technologies and we're moving into new ways of working, is we want to bring in some necessarily skills and capacity we might not necessarily have right now to augment the team we've got now to achieve what we're trying to do. Folk will know we've had detailed assessments on how we're working now. So from Co-Stratify, from our infrastructure and operational services perspective, who've come in to help us with ESP, and there'll be a slide on that just to remind people. A Net Company who've come in to give us assistance in terms of where we need to be from an information and intelligence and insight perspective. And also, we've been also working on the future in terms of our electronic healthcare record strategy, the future plans around CPD, but in particular, the way in which we build a team to work on CPD as if CPD is a product. And CPD, don't get me wrong, it might be that we've got different types of solutions or a mix of solutions around that, but how our development team work closer as part of a product team around that. Now, all of this work is all part of our target and trajectory, which is to go from an IT score of maturity model level 0 at the minute, which is an asset-based service, very much services from sort of 1990s type of 2000 type IT departments, where we're basically reactive to user demands and needs as best we can. We're trying to move up the value chain to number 1, to a process type model, so something that came into being late 90s and early 2000s, whereby you implement IT infrastructure library, IT service management processes and disciplines in terms of the way we work as an operational service. And of course, you implement project and portfolio management office. You make sure that IT is aligned to the business, and IT pieces of work, or information pieces of work for that matter, are commissioned through a commissioning process and are properly managed in terms of their delivery, up to a service, and then where we want to get to a value-based model, which is where we are contributing directly to the direction of the organisation by putting digital at its core. This takes some time to get up to, so our target and the target of this structure in the first instance is a bit of a mix of moving us from an asset-based organisation to a process-based organisation, and then up to a value one. I know you guys have all had presentations in the detail of all of this back in December time, so appreciate you've heard this. So this is just a quick reminder, but I'd remind you to go back to one of my previous videos on that, or just ask your SLT member to take you through it all again in the document which supports that. That's around moving up the Gartner IT score model. We also had a presentation previously on our operating model, which describes the move up to a process-based organisation. We've already recruited Roland to be our business engagement manager, already starting to make a difference, whereby we're working with care groups and corporate areas for that matter, and ultimately we've got a clear commissioning process, and fundamentally we're helping with them develop their roadmaps and digital roadmaps accordingly, and we're also starting to modernise operational support and service management. Again, previous presentations and things you'll have heard from your SLT members or videos in the past. Importantly and critically, this is the most critical issue for us, is where we are with our infrastructure and where we need to go. So this is the Essential Services Programme. So Simon Hayes from Bio and Co-Stratify in particular helping with this. We've got a significant programme of work. We've not necessarily invested for all sorts of reasons in some of the core elements that we should have invested in. And we also need to look at how we operate as a service to support the modernisation and transformation of IT from the infrastructure and service management perspective. And the Essential Services Programme, as you all know, is about this. And there'll be a separate video on essential services from Simon at a future. We're clear about our as-is, but we're very clear about what our to-be model is. And that is not just a to-be in terms of technologies, cloud-based services, N365, etc. It's also about how we deliver work and the whole service management piece. So we're very clear about where we need to be going and the costs for that. And again, that necessitates the need for some new skills and some gaps there for us to bring in and get ourselves educated in terms of being a more modern digital and information service. Got a clear roadmap and a plan. It's massive. Each one of those boxes is a project in its own right. But basically, it also helps us to raise IT operations and service management's maturity, in particular, just from an ITIL point of view, even from the current level 1 to a target maturity level of 4. Appreciate it's not the end goal, but ultimately it's a place to start. And so we're very clear in terms of where we need to be getting to, and Simon is leading on that, Simon Hayes. So our as-is structure, this is just a quick view of our as-is structure and how that works. And we've also got on the right there, and I've just added it on in yellow just for the purposes of this, is we've actually got an integrated digital care record program, which is the nursing documentation program or clinical documentation program. So that's something that's working at the minute, and I just want to keep an eye on that, because ultimately, in terms of being a value-based organisation, what we're going to be doing is looking to turn that into a product team going forward in future. So our proposed, but this is not final structure, so this is a proposal and something which we are going to be looking at developing, and as we go over the next few months. But in an ideal world, what is being proposed for our DIS structure, for a permanent structure made up of NHS employees that would be recruited to. This is it, and our ideal is to have this structure live from April onwards 2022. That's where we'd like to get to. But as I say, it's a proposal, and we want to continue working with you guys and everyone on developing this and what's best in terms of making it work as a team. So you'll see there from left to right the introduction of a Chief Technology Officer, which takes on all aspects of technology under one banner. You'll see some roles under there, Head of IT Service Management, for instance, particular focus on, service management, Head of Infrastructure, Applications and Integration, Solution Architecture, for instance, there as a new role, really important in terms of our commissioning process, that we have a solution architect, especially around the infrastructure side of things. We've got our Head of Information Governance and Data Protection Officer, so that's Becky, as you know. Really important is the introduction of a Cyber Security Manager. Then we've got a new role here, which is a Training and Governance Manager. The idea of that is to combine training and governance of the service overall. So I'm talking about procurement, risk management, compliance, training of the users, as well as training of the IT staff. It's almost the office of the CDIO. It's running SLT, budget management, making sure that from a sourcing perspective there are leads for each contract, managing audit reports, etc. So that is abstracted from being in one of the professional areas into its own professional business management type of function there, and that's the idea of that. And then we move on to Head of Intelligence and Insight, not a Head of Information. So the Net Company report and our ambition around information is not to be a reactive service that just provides information on demand as best as we can. No, it's about how we provide because of our knowledge and understanding of the business and the business direction and where it's going, and the region in this case actually now, is how we provide intelligence and insight and start contributing to the direction that we're going in. And it's best practice in terms of, this is almost in best practice terms, if you were searching for it on Google, it's like a business intelligence competency centre. And then we've got our head of delivery. So we've got an interim head of delivery now, which is Kathy Stanley. And that is where we've got Roland from a business engagement point of view, where we're managing the demand coming in. We're doing resource management. We're helping with business cases. We're prioritising. We're managing the resources across the service. So that's the core service. And as you'll see there, importantly at the top, as well as having Donald as our CCIO, Chief Clinical Commissioning Officer, it's important that we've got a Chief Nursing Information Officer. And in fact, Donald and Nick Coventry are going to be doing what they can to, really ramp up and improve the clinical engagement we have in the development of digital going forward. And instead of a project team here, you'll see this becomes a formal and sustained bit of the structure. So the IDCR product manager, it might not be called the IDCR product manager product, but that's where CPD or our EPR or our suite of software which makes up our EPR becomes a product that we've developed. We have a product roadmap and so on and so forth. And we designed that through bringing in user experience and service design expertise, which we potentially not necessarily have right now, to augment our clinical team. So we call in this, in some cases, if you search on the internet for fusion team, which is an example of one from another trust, it's about product teams, fusion teams, that sort of thing. So ultimately, this is our desired, where we want to be. However, we've been given approval using non-recurrent funding to put an interim structure in place. And then with this interim structure, all that's happening in effect is we're putting in place the senior management structure, and we're realigning people. So on their existing JDs and their existing the existing things they do, we're realigning people under the new leadership team. Simple as that. So, and that means we can use non-recurrent funding, one-off funding for this year, to fill particular posts and give us some momentum. We have to fill with a mix of interim and NHS posts, because there's no guarantee that there will be the funding available in the next financial year to support us fully. So you'll see there that we will extend Simon Hayes as our interim Chief Technology Officer. Adrian, as the Head of Infrastructure and Service, will report into Simon. And similarly, Lisa Haig, as the Development Team Manager, will work into Simon as well. So this is the whole technology area realigned. The Head of Information Governance and DPO stands. I've asked Sue Bennington on an interim basis would she take on additional responsibility to not only manage and run the training area, but on an interim basis also pick up the governance and the other things I talked about in that role. So therefore, the training team and Lina and the business support team, as this is me calling them, will realign under the governance and training manager. Also, when it comes to intelligence and insight, I'm keen to combine all of the resource that's working on intelligence, and therefore Massimo and Phil will realign under Nikki Slater as the head of intelligence and insight. We'll have Kathy Stanley will need to be extended as the interim head of delivery, and people will already know that in this particular area we've got a few interims which will have to continue until we can get some permanent approval for some permanent positions for the delivery area. Although Roland is already in there doing the business right now. And right now, because there is such a lot to do with where we want to get to in terms of innovation around our electronic patient record strategy, Kev will be dedicating his time to becoming the lead technical architect for our future EPR strategy and directly helping me bid for cash. So just to reiterate, this interim structure is going live on the 1st of July. It's a realignment of people in their existing roles under new leadership, and it's focusing their efforts where the priorities are, with the view that we can start to develop our future structure, more permanent structured arrangements over the next few months, with the view that we bid for that structure and the resources we need for it to go live in April 22. You'll see we cheekily got a couple of desktop engineers in there as well, which we felt were really critical in terms of some of the rollout work that we need to do more immediately. It may be that with the money that's been allocated to us, we may do some adaptations in terms of what we actually go for, but 95% of that is right. Now, people will have questions. I'm sure they will, or they'll be wondering what's happening or whatever. Really important to make sure that you have your one-to-ones with your managers. You make sure you're having at least 2 meaningful conversations a year.